Good morning, Eddie. Firstly, please, could you update us on Jacob Ramsey, who came out for the second half at the weekend but couldn't play on because of sickness?
Yeah, Jacob was in yesterday, trained fine, so a quick recovery from him. There's obviously an illness potentially there in the squad because Nick Voltemade's gone downhill and we haven't seen him for a couple of days. So
you'd expect Voltemade not to be available tomorrow night then?
Let's see, we'll give him every chance.
On Jacob Ramsey, obviously, it was a blow to lose him at the weekend. He'd scored the goal and he'd been playing well in that match, and in recent games he's been particularly good, hasn't he, which must be really pleasing for you.
Yeah, he's getting better and better for me. When we first signed him, I think it was really clear from the training that we were doing how good technically Jacob is. I mean, he's very rarely wastes a ball. He's really good in tight areas, and he has good athleticism as well to add to the other side. So I think he's got a little bit of everything, and it's been great to see him score a couple of really important goals for us. Because I think naturally playing in midfield, I think you need to contribute in that area as well. So I think that would have done his confidence levels, those two goals, the world of good. I think he now feels fully here and at home and comfortable with what he's being asked to do. So I think really positive signs for him that he can only get better from this point as well.
Can I just check quickly on Tino Livramento? Is this going to be too soon for him, this match?
Yeah, I think possibly. I think he's getting closer and closer. I know asked a lot about him, and I understand why, because I do the same to the medical team. It's like a chain that goes down. We're desperate for him to be back available, but it has to be at the right time. And every injury situation is not always as simple as you give a return date and the player comes back. There's always little things that can happen either way. I think he's slightly ahead of the schedule initially given, but yeah, he's in the last little bits of his rehab now.
Keith? Eddie, I know we kind of touched on it after the match against Everton, but are you able at all to put your finger on why it feels like the more winnable game you've got on paper, you look like you're struggling of late, and then the tougher game, it feels like maybe the players are rising to the occasion a bit more? Is that something you've sensed?
Yeah, possibly, Keith. It is a difficult one, as you say. The psychology of sport, psychology of human beings, really. I think we have struggled in that respect in recent games. We have had the ability to raise our game. We don't want that to be the outcome, of course. We want to be consistent. We want to be our best in every game. So it's a frustration for all of us. We're trying to find solutions to every problem that we have, and there'll always be problems, even if you're winning every game, and you've got to try and continue to find solutions. So that's what we're trying to do. But yeah, that is a bit of a head scratcher for us.
What do you say to the players after that on Saturday? I know you won't have been happy, but then when you look at the next 6 days, Manchester United at home, Man City at home, Barcelona at home, I mean, there's not really too much time to breathe. You kind of just need to get on with it, don't you?
Yeah, we do. But I think we have to get the focus in the right areas. The focus has to be on what we can do better. And we've tried to always, amongst a moment of really high emotion, try and bring it back to what can help the players, what can help our next performance. Players did a really good job yesterday, and I think my staff did a really good job yesterday of trying to bring it back to that. So I think we did some good work on the training pitch, one of the rare opportunities we've had to do that. Today will be the same. And it's highlighting themes and mentality to our performance that we think will help us in our next run of games, and that's what we're trying to do.
Is there maybe a little bit of pressure at home? You've been so good at home over the years, but you're just looking at the last 3 defeats at home in games you'd have hoped to have won. Is there maybe just a little bit of pressure, you think, on the players there?
Yeah, I think there's always that pressure. I understand sometimes it can be build more than in other games, but I think that pressure's always there when you play for this club. So I think they've become accustomed and used to that. Yes, our home form's been rock solid for so long that when you get a blip like we've had currently, it feels abnormal, it feels unusual, it feels not good. You know, it's hurting us. So we pride ourselves on trying to give our supporters what they want, and we haven't been able to do that in recent games. And I think all energy now is towards that, and that's of course Manchester United, which will be a great game for us.
Thanks, Keith. Andy?
Well, Neddy, naturally we hear lots of opinions at this stage of a season about Newcastle United season. What emotion best sums it up from your personal perspective, Newcastle's form domestically in the Premier League?
Over the whole season or just...
Yeah, well, the whole season.
I think one of frustration really, I think when I look back at the games that we haven't executed what we want, and some of the moments in the games where we're uncharacteristically performing in a way that has cost us points. Huge frustration because we feel we're a good team. We feel like we've made progress this season, and then we'll sort of step back from a point where you think we're moving forward. So that's been a mental challenge for all of us because, as I said, the players want success, we want success, and we want to become the team that we want to be quicker. So I think dealing with that and being able to put it somewhere and then focusing on how you can get better and all the work that normally would go on the training pitch, we're having to condense into really short periods. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. I think you have to look at from my perspective, the mentality of trying to help the players, trying to coach them, trying to educate them, rather than sort of going more negative.
Keith referred to it there, but I mean, the run of fixtures coming up in the next 7 days, Manchester United, Manchester City, Barcelona. Is this week pivotal to Newcastle season? I know you used that word last press conference and I've nicked it from you, but does it feel pivotal to Newcastle season?
Yeah, I mean, they're all pivotal games. When you reel that the games that we have, I think we have to try and be positive. We have to try and relish those games. We can't play with any fear. We can't play with the thought of we haven't won at home for a few games. We've just got to go and attack the games and be as positive we can be. I think if you said this 4 years ago, these are going to be your next run of fixtures in the Champions League, in the FA Cup, you'd have bitten whatever off to be in that position. And we are in that position, and we have to almost play games with our brain to go, don't look back, let's look forward.
Just finally, I think it was a few years ago when the Amazon documentary was going on and there was that team talk from you ahead of the Manchester United game and those words, get into them. Is that going to be the similar sort of message against Manchester United tomorrow night? And also, is this the type of game, weirdly like you were referring to, where we would see the best of Newcastle United under the lights against a side in form like Manchester United?
Well, hopefully. That's not a given. You've got to create that yourself. So every time that we've done that previously has been with the intention from the players to be that team. I think that's always our intention in every game, is to get into them, to be aggressive, to play on the front foot, to be a proactive team rather than a reactive team. I think that's always in our psychology. That's always what we want to be. And hopefully we can be that team again.
Thanks, Andy. Alistair, look north.
Hi, Eddie. Manchester United are a different proposition to maybe what they were a couple of months ago. What do you think Michael Carrick's done to make them so much better, so much harder to play?
I think he's tweaked things tactically. I think he's looks like he's built a really good atmosphere there, and I think then players in a good atmosphere will play better. So I think it's been real positive for them. You can see a big upturn in their general performance. I think they're statistically good in terms of attacking output, defensive output. So then they've got some really good players. It's going to be a great game for us and a great opportunity for us at home to rediscover our best form.
You've spoken about the disappointment at conceding so many goals at home this season. Have you been able to figure out, I guess, why that's happening? Is it some sort of structural thing or a concentration thing or a luck thing or just how it goes?
Well, I don't think it's all season. Early season we were excellent defensively. We were right up there with Arsenal as one of the best teams in all aspects and all metrics. We've certainly had a downturn in the last sort of 8 games, I would say. Probably coinciding with, not making this as an excuse, but some big absentees in our back line, which is don't think's helped us. But also then you have to look at the team we have, and I still think the team we have is a very good team that we have to defend better as a team. And so the real focus then is on every player to contribute to that effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go with Damien, George and then Dom, please.
Hi, Eddie. You spoke on Saturday about the inconsistent Premier League form being one of the prices you had to pay for European football. When you look at the difficulties Newcastle and Aston Villa have had playing in those competitions over the last 3 years. Is it almost impossible for a club outside of the traditional top 6 to compete at that level on all fronts at the moment?
I don't like the word impossible regarding what we can achieve, because I think that then gives everyone a way out and an excuse, really. I think it's difficult. Our schedule this season has been, when you compare it to 2 years ago, the schedule 2 years ago now seemed easy. When you look back in hindsight, with obviously the extra games in the Champions League, we've gone deep into the cup competitions. It's put a real stretch, not only on our sort of resources of players available to us to select, but then the energy levels and the sort of the peak physical condition for every game that the players have gone into. No doubt players have gone into games tired and fatigued, and maybe just 1 or 2% off, and that's all you need at this level to not deliver your best. I think we've been slightly unlucky with a few injuries that have really impacted us, and you look, we've got 5 defenders out injured at the moment, and that's tough for any team to absorb, especially when you're playing every 3 days. So I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's difficult, and you need a bit of luck that probably we haven't had.
Thank you. Got George and then Dom.
Morning, Eddie. Yeah, similar question, really. Obviously, other teams have played lots of games as well, but looking at this fixture, it's 45 games for Newcastle this season. It's 30 for Manchester United. How much do you think volume of matches has affected Premier League form? And if you accept that, which it sounds like you do as a kind of basic premise, how does the club get better at it?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not looking for excuses here. I'm not saying that because we've played 45, there's no way we can do certain things. But I think naturally when you use those two numbers together, I think we would have dropped points because of that, I think, in the Premier League or in other competitions or whatever. But yeah, managing that is, I think we've done it okay, but I just think we've been put in a position where we haven't had the luxury to rotate in positions that we would have rotated, and then players have to go again. And when we got to that situation 2 years ago, we're sort of back into that situation now, and that's not ideal. And we've seen that impact our performances and the performances of certain individual players who are giving their all for the team and the club, but maybe not able to execute their very best game. So I think that's been a real shame. But we have to navigate it better. I think we are trying to do that with better facilities, better staff, better education, better knowledge. But I think that comes with European football, and I think in some senses it's the more you do it, the better you become at it. I don't think there's any secret to that, and a lot of the clubs that are doing really, really well in both and all competitions have done that for a number of years. So we're still on the journey to being able to absorb all of those games.
Dom.
Morning, Eddie. You touched on it before, but only Arsenal have won more games on expected goals than yourselves this season. You spoke previously about having one of the best expected goals defensive records in the Premier League, yet struggling to keep a clean sheet. Why is there such a disparity between the expectations and the reality this season?
Yeah, good question. That one can sometimes in the lap of the gods. I think when you get, using XG, I think I'm a big believer in XG. I believe it does tell a story. I think certainly over 1 or 2 games it can have big variance, like you speak about. Over a long term, probably over a season, you'd expect the mean to drop to what it should be. So hopefully that means there's a lot more clean sheets ahead for us.
We'll go Craig, Luke and then Charlie, please.
Eddie, you've spoken before about living or dying by recruitment. I suppose this is sort of 2 questions in one. Can you speak to us about that general theme in terms of how important and how impactful recruitment is, but also then specific to this season, you're coming up against the Manchester United team tomorrow who signed 4 players in the summer who have all impacted. You look at their win at the weekend and all 4 were lauded for their contribution. How do you then compare that to some of the struggles you guys have had? So yeah, 2 questions in one really, the general premise, but also specific to this season.
Yeah, I mean, recruitment is everything, and I think was that my quotes, live or die by recruitment, was it? Yeah, okay, well, that's very good. Because I believe in that. I think if you get that wrong, it's very difficult to have the success that you want. I think, again, with recruitment, I think you've got to take a longer term view, because I think you can take a very short term view and make big assumptions that could be wrong. So I think if you take a long-term view of our recruitment, certainly since, I can only speak since I've been here, I think it's been excellent over the piece. I think when you look back, you can, percentage-wise, I'm not sure there'd be a club that would have the success rate that we've had. Then you look at, of course, short-term, and you can make, as I say, mistakes. I think you've got to look at over a longer-term period if you're going back to the summer for us. And of course, there's question marks, and of course, people have different opinions. But just case in point would be Jacob Ramsey. Just give players a bit of time to prove and their worth and to settle into what we asked them to do. I think there's a lot to take in there. So I think Manchester United, as you mentioned, I think have recruited really well. The players that you mentioned, I think, are outstanding players. Players that we were, of course, aware of in the summer. So well done to them. I think for us, I'm really happy with the new players that we've got. Of course, they're all in different journeys to reach their best level. I believe they will get there. I'm really happy with the squad, but of course we've got work to do to be at our best level.
Luke and then Charlie, please.
Probably leads on quite nicely from Craig's question, actually. But what's the situation in Yoan Wissa? Because he probably hasn't had the impact that we were expecting him to have.
Yeah, I think I've said many times regarding Yoan's situation. Didn't train a lot during the summer, so obviously had a gap there in his physical preparation for this season. Then picked up an injury on international duty. That's very, very difficult to adjust to mid-season because there's as I said before, I think repeating probably the quotes that I've used before regarding this, you have a 6-week pre-season for a reason to get players adjusted and ready for the new season. We haven't been able to do that with him. But he's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of fitness work. He's just come back from a recent injury as well. And we're hoping his best moments are ahead of him. And certainly he's shown a great attitude to his training. He's really, really motivated and keen to do well for the club and to repay the club and the supporters for everything that they've given him. That's a situation with him. I don't think it's an ideal introduction for him coming here. I think it's been a tough period for him.
Thank you. Charlie?
Eddie, the Germany manager, Julian Nagelsmann's come out and said he's had a chat with Voldemort about his form. He's told him to relax. When he first arrived at the club, he was confident. Has that taken a knock in recent times? And have you managed to have a chat with him about his form and the situation he's in right now?
Yeah, as I said, I speak to the players, not necessarily on a daily basis, but I'll be having meetings with them throughout the week on various things, usually associated to their game and trying to help them. Reviewing games, I've done a lot of that with Nick. I think Nick's in a relatively decent place with his game. It's so funny how one performance or one bad game can suddenly bring a string of or a cloud around a player. I think Nick's performances, if you look at them again with a more holistic viewpoint, I think it's been excellent in recent games. I've been pleased with him. Yes, he's maybe not getting the goals that he was in the early season, but I think his all-round game is better than it was. So I'm sort of oblivious, as I said so many times before, to the outside opinion. I would be saying the same as his national team manager, to not necessarily to relax, but to carry on enjoying your football, play your way. He's got outstanding qualities. I think he'll only get better for us as time goes on.
Thank you. We'll go Lee Ryder and then Kieran, please.
Eddie, on sort of loyalty to players who continuously get picked, at what stage does it get where you have to do something sort of drastic? Because there's a couple of players who have been struggling of late. There's a World Cup on the horizon as well, so I guess you have to manage all that. But at what stage does it get to the point where you do something drastic selection-wise?
Yeah, the loyalty to players, that makes it sound like you pick players based on what they've done previously, and that's not the case. I'll always pick players that I think will give us the best chance to win the next game. So that's really a simplistic view of how I see it. They've got to train to the maximum level. I'll always judge the next training session. As I said, I'll judge them off their last game. And if I think there's someone better to pick, I have to pick them for the benefit of the team. So that's my view on team selection.
Check on Nick as well. Obviously, there was this sort of narrative after the Everton game. I know you say you don't look at social media, but there was this sort of narrative that he was
almost at the centre of all the blame for what happened. He got the 14 touches. What do you do to a player who may be experiencing that? Because the players do look at social media sometimes as well.
Are you talking Nick Baltamado there? Yeah. Well, yeah, as I said, that's news to me. We'll have discussions with players about social media, not necessarily about what the narrative is. There's people at the club that, of course, do have their eyes across that, because it'd be lazy of us not to. But it's not something that a world that I can go into, because if I go into that, then and I read it and I absorb it, my opinions will be swayed by nonsense. So I'll prefer to keep my brain and my opinions to myself, based off my own eyes. Nick's doing well. I would never overreact negatively or positively towards one performance from any individual player. It's always about the longer term and making sure they're continuing to improve. Of course, Nick's got stuff to work on, and we're working on with him, but I'm happy with him.
I think you've got time for one last one. We've got Kieran, please.
Morning. Do you think the club will have to recruit a little differently this summer, compared to last summer and previous windows, or do you kind of see it as a similar combination of overseas signings and Premier League proven players again?
It depends what you mean. Are you talking where we sign players from? Yeah. I think we've got a very open mind. I don't care where we sign players from, as long as they're good enough to take the team to the next level. What club we're signing, what league we're signing them from is irrelevant to me. As long as we've got the information on the player, we've been tracking him for long enough to have a really good, strong, stable opinion on what they are actually like, and whether that player can adapt to the Premier League. The country we're signing is irrelevant. Of course, price and availability and all the other factors that you take in. There's so much that goes into it. But certainly I'm very open-minded in terms of where we're signing players from, and I think we've proved that with the players that we've signed since I've been here.